public timekeeping device. Just as the citizens of New York gather for the grand New Year countdown at Times Square, so did Neolithic man come together for life and death rituals to mark the calendar's longest day.
This monument was connected with death, maybe with the past, but I think what is quite good visible here, it was connected with fertility. Yeah, because it was connected with the sun, and the sun brings the life every day, every year again.
After years of painstaking fieldwork, Andreas and his team have reconstructed the Goseck henge. 2,000 wooden stakes have been driven into the ground to replicate the sacred calendar that stood here in the 5th millennium BC. The team have discovered that this is a monument aligned with unerring accuracy to match the rising and setting of the Earth's sun.
All these gaps has astronomic orientations or references. For instance, these gaps are orientated to the winter solstice. This is a time with the shortest day and the longest night. Yeah? In the north we have an orientation to the summer solstice, so it's the longest day and the shortest night.
The southwestern and southeastern entrances are situated almost precisely 100 degrees apart. On the shortest day of the year, they mark the exact point at which the sun rises and sets, telling the ancients when a solar year has passed. Once we learned how to tell the time, people began to synchronize their lives and build even larger settlements.
This site is quite important because this is the first time that we have a cult place, a cult center for a bigger society.
How the ancient people of Goseck lived remains cloaked in mystery, but we do know that its power to mark the passage of time transformed this site into a sacred headquarters. Crop cycles, wars, and journeys could at last be measured, and the city was born. What's more, Goseck has opened up a groundbreaking new theory. Just 25 miles north at Ziegelrode Forest, archaeologists have unearthed incredible new evidence that later societies took this ancient astronomy to amazing new heights. 2,000 years before the first recorded planetarium, the Neolithic settlers of Europe mapped the celestial heavens with phenomenal accuracy. Professor Wolfhard Schlosser is a former space station engineer. He has used all his scientific expertise to decipher the riddles of an ancient astronomical artifact.
This is a Nebra disk. It is about 3,600 years old and was found in central Germany.
The Nebra disk appears to exhibit the same segments of a circle as were found at Goseck. When we align the two, we see that they fit like a modern combination lock. Both ancient discoveries seem to have been devices designed to mark the summer and winter solstices on the Earth's calendar.
Of course, we have no stars in Goseck, and we have, of course, no wood on the disk. But from the astronomical point of view, they are very similar, and they show that in these 3,300 years in between, the astronomy more or less remains the same.
Yet the Nebra disk has complexities that go far beyond the Goseck circle. For besides the sun and the moon, it also depicts 32 dots, including this obscure group of 7. There are no clues at Goseck or anywhere else in the region as to what the dots could represent. And there is nothing in the night sky of our world that remotely resembles them. But once we adjust the heavens for how the stars have changed in the 36 centuries since the disk was made, we find that they precisely match the Pleiades constellation, a famous star group that we may see today.
These objects have changed our attitude towards these old times. The disk was sacred in early times, early Bronze Age, and I'm convinced that then the meaning of the disk was lost.
The ancient studies of the cosmos launched an incredible journey of understanding that underpins the satellites and space stations of the 21st century. And it also changed our cities. As we mastered time and the heavens, arranging our lives has never been the same again. Yet what truly transformed cities into mega metropolises was an altogether more massive innovation: ancient stadiums. Only these stadiums didn't stage innocent sporting events. They housed epic blood bowls, killing up to 10,000 people at a time. Today, New York is a towering citadel of power. Wall Street stockbrokers, media moguls, and superstars stand at the crossroads of the world. Throughout history, one other city rivals New York's global reach, and that city is ancient Rome. 2,000 years ago, Rome was home to over 1 million people. Some believe that there were more people per square mile of the city than in modern Manhattan. Its population was as diverse as any modern metropolis, from rich to poor, from emperors to slaves.
As the population expanded, they become more and more cramped. And there's always a danger with enormous numbers of people in a tightly confined space. The political elite wanted to make sure they maintained control of the populace.
In Rome, just as in New York, the elites fought a battle for the hearts and minds of the populace. While Manhattan's power brokers used the media and public relations, the Romans' ingenious solution was to pacify the people with entertainment.
These entertainments were effectively a form of bribery. It was trying to gain popularity and approval of the masses as a form of subjugation or a form of control.
The emperor who provided the most exciting spectacle became incredibly popular. Popularity meant power. The challenge was on to develop the most technologically advanced entertainment systems the world had ever seen. Mass entertainment was born.
If we think of the huge ceremonies at the beginning of sporting events like the Olympics or the Super Bowl, laser shows, hundreds of people performing for a mass audience, we think this is quite powerful, quite dramatic. Bearing this in mind, if we're to believe some of the first-hand accounts of particularly some of the Imperial Roman events, these modern events pale into insignificance virtually.
The ultimate realization of this plan came in the form of the Colosseum. This 150-foot-high, multi-tiered mega monument was the biggest of its kind ever built.
The best estimate for the seating capacity of the Colosseum is something like 65 to 70,000 people. The really interesting thing is that this is probably the maximum capacity for an amphitheatre in order for the spectators at the very back still to be able to see what is going on in the arena.
The Romans pushed the boundaries of audio-visual mass entertainment, and they did this using over 100,000 cubic yards of stone.
You would have needed an ox cart with a large block of stone in it, arriving at the building site every 2 or 3 minutes, day and night, over, say, 7 years of construction.
Amazingly, these feats of engineering have not changed in thousands of years. The secret of ultra-modern stadiums is that they copy the technology used by the Romans thousands of years ago.
It is a 74,500-seater stadium, and at the moment it's very quiet, but when the crowd is in, it's a very different story. The noise, the tension, the atmosphere is what makes a modern sports stadium. The design of the Roman amphitheatres and the Colosseum in particular, has not been bettered.
This modern stadium features a retractable roof supported by 4 giant pillars, an innovation 2,000 years old.
The covering of the spectator areas of the Colosseum was made out of, we think, canvas, strung out on masts using ropes. And this makes a lot of sense because what we do know is that there were 1,000 sailors from the Roman Navy stationed in Rome specifically to operate the awnings that covered the Colosseum.
Protected by their retractable roof, the Roman spectators would have been enthralled by gladiator death matches, executions, and the sacrifice of 9,000 animals in just 100 days. But as the Roman emperors provided more and more exotic and sophisticated spectacles, The crowds demanded more. Every year, the engineers had to invent even more amazing extravaganzas to satisfy the hungry appetite of the mob. In 85 AD, Emperor Domitian proposed the impossible. He would use 500 billion gallons of water in a spectacle known as a Naumachia.
A Naumachia is a recreated naval battle hosted in a place like the Colosseum, would have involved thousands of people, a spectacular set piece, occasion often recreating a historical battle. It would involve criminals, captives, other people who had no choice but to fight.
The Colosseum was flooded to allow the staging of a giant naval conflict. This transformation of the 29,000 square foot arena into a floating battlefield is a challenge that leaves even modern stadiums behind.
One of the issues we've looked at here is how we could actually hold a water event, how we could flood the lower area of the stadium in order to create some sort of water spectacle. And we haven't mastered that yet. And yet, 2,000 years ago, the Romans did exactly that.
The Naumachia was a resounding success, but it made things even worse for future emperors. How could Domitian's successors top this technological and engineering triumph to provide a spectacle for the crowd? The next emperor, Emperor Claudius, took to the throne in 41 AD, and he invented extreme Naumachia. This would employ 50 billion times more water. With no possible way of building a stadium large enough, he moved the entertainment to a massive lake, Lake Fucine. Now that great lake has been completely drained, but in 52 AD, these fields were the site for a sea battle between 50 ships and 19,000 performers.
Claudius's 19,000 gladiators who fought at his battle on the Fucine Lake is far bigger numbers than participate in the opening of the Olympic Games today.
500,000 spectators waited for the start of what would be the largest spectacle in history.
The battle on the Fucine Lake was started by an incredible mechanical device which raised a Triton, a mythological sea beast, from the floor of the lake.
From the still waters, a 40-foot-high solid silver statue of the god Triton appeared as if by magic, with no sign of how it was powered. The texts tell of the crowds going ballistic. A horn in the Triton's mouth sounded, and the greatest fake sea battle ever staged began. At a lakeshore in England, ancient investigator Richard Windley and his assistant have constructed a model of how Richard believes they accomplished this engineering success.
What I've tried to do is to use very simple technology, things that the Romans were used to dealing with on an everyday basis. Pulleys, ropes. This really is a piece of technology that would be well within their capabilities. What we've basically got is 4 posts. Each one of these is lifting a corner of this framework here, which is supporting the device. Now, each corner is lifted via a cord which comes over the pulley here, down a pulley at the bottom, and they're all attached to a central ring. So each one of these pulls at exactly the same time, and in theory at exactly the same rate. So the whole thing should lift up perfectly symmetrically until it reaches the point of the pulleys, which is about here, by which time most of the statue would be above the level of the lake. We'll see if we've got everything set up correctly now. So Dave, if you'd like to take the tension and then just gently lift the figure. Okay, we're going up reasonably square at the moment. Oh, that's pretty good, actually. The difficulty with this is getting all the ropes at just precisely the right lengths, but I think we've got the adjustment correct now.